you can see it doesn't have my face in it, and I also have the mic set up differently, so it's kind of over to the side over here, so there's a chance the audio doesn't sound the same. I have put the gain up a little bit just to hopefully catch everything and to make sure you can hear me as clearly as possible. But today I actually thought I would do a bit of I think it's actually a bit of a video kind of in my line of work. So I used to work for an organisation that provided support. They provided this support to people with disabilities. a share house potentially, farmhouse or rural properties, a townhouse or city living, government or community housing. So that would be housing that is either partially or fully funded by our government, which some people need, and I think that's perfectly okay. That's exactly why we have a functioning society that we pay taxes towards. I want people who are struggling to have this support, and I'm willing to have conversations with people who feel differently about it, but I think it comes down to human dignity and giving everyone the chance to rebuild themselves or take care of themselves in a way that isn't undignified. Would it be emergency or crisis accommodation? So things like women's shelters for women and kids escaping family and domestic violence situations. Maybe even just homeless shelters, things of that nature. Emergent opening doors schemes and shared equity properties. So I think that would be like your communal kind of properties and setups, you know, where everyone just kind of lives in the commune. Everyone, what's the word, but, you know, does their part, and everyone's supposed to be equal. In reality, when that's actually played out, there is usually some sort of culty behaviour behind it, but on paper, the idea of a commune looks and sounds wonderful. Okay, now, I'm certainly not going to go through all of this because just, you know, no need to, but what do you need to bring and pack with you for your new home? It separates it into bedroom, bathroom, kitchen and laundry, and as you can see it goes into depth with really everything that might be something you want to take or bring with you to your new home. Covers the basics like beds and all the stuff you would need for your bed, clothing, stuff that you would need for clothing, and then other electrical items that you would find within a bedroom. Or not just electrical, but electrical and other miscellaneous items. Like a full-length mirror. Gotta remember that, guys. Okay, we move on to bathroom. Now, this is all once again generalized. You specifically bring what you need. If you have a CPAP machine, make sure to bring it, yeah? Just because it's not on the list doesn't mean we need to forget it. But yeah, generalized, and then you add your specifics. So bathroom, all your bathroom bits and pieces, all your personal care bits and pieces, scales, bin. Yep, I was gonna say, I like to cover my toothbrush with a little case, but don't need to add it on there, that's just something I like, so conversation there. Quick, bring it up. Hey, I don't think I feel fully confident about handling my finances when I move out. Could you help me set up a bit of a budget? And they can go from there. If you do not feel comfortable going to someone, Google can be your best friend. There are plenty of things on there. Even just directing you to another person who you can pay to help you do it. But experience here.